from Washington State University. I work with Dr. Sarah Tragresser in Pullman. I'm here to talk a little bit about borderline personality and substance use disorder. For the last 30 years or so, there's been quite a bit of evidence suggesting a strong link between both borderline personality disorder and substance use disorder generally. Despite this wealth of evidence, there is actually very little research that's been done on borderline personality disorder and prescription opioids specifically. So that was what we set out to do, was look at BPD and prescription opioids specifically. And in fact, only 4 previous studies have looked at BPD and prescription opioids. And none of these have looked at it in a substance abuse sample. So the focus of this study was to look at borderline personality disorder and prescription opioid misuse in a substance use sample, and then hopefully to figure out which facet or facets of BPD might be driving that relationship. These are the measures that we used in this study, and we looked at cannabis and alcohol use for comparison and for control purposes as well. These were the demographics. We had 208 individuals in the substance abuse treatment. They were all on the outpatient level of care. And this is what we found. First, we found that age of first use of prescription opioids was negatively associated with BPD. What that means is that for individuals that began using prescription opioids earlier in life, they reported significantly higher BPD symptom count. And for in the bivariate correlations that we looked at, similar to what we see in the literature, similar to what we see or consistent to what we saw in alcohol and cannabis use, prescription opioid symptom and problem use were both related to BPD features, and not consistent to what we saw in alcohol, but very interesting given the Mary Zanarini talk yesterday. We found that lifetime use and past 12-month use were particularly associated with prescription opioid use. Next, we wanted to look at some control variables. So we wanted to control for first both age and sex, and again we see this strong relationship with BPD features. And then we also wanted to control for the influence, the shared influence of alcohol and cannabis use. And again, across all of our measures of misuse, symptom count, lifetime use, we saw these strong relationships with BPD features and prescription opioid use in the prescription opioid use measures. Surprisingly, or probably the most surprisingly to me, is that whether a person was high or low in BPD features had no effect on whether they had, at least in this sample, whether they had used prescription opioid as prescribed by a physician. And where these individuals tended to differ was in their misuse. So, for example, intentionally getting high, frequency or quantity of use at any one time. Those were the variables that we saw related to prescription opioid use. And then lastly, we wanted to see which of the BPD facets, according to the PIA board, was driving this relationship. And again, across pretty much all of the measures, the strongest relationships were between, or were with the self-harm impulsivity scale of the PIA board. So what does this mean? In conclusion, this was the first study to suggest that there is a link between BPD and prescription opioid use while controlling for other substances of abuse in a substance abuse treatment sample. I think that we found that, or shown that individuals with BPD may be more likely to misuse prescription opioid. And then lastly, I think that we have offered evidence in support of the theory that suggests that BPD tends to be a personality disorder that is characterized by deficits in the endogenous opioid system, and that these individuals seek out activities that artificially stimulate the endogenous opioid system. Special thanks to, I can thank people and give to, special thanks to all of these people and the research grant that I had at Washington State University, and thank you.